This is a LEGO train locomotive, and on the tracks ahead of it, there's larger and larger gaps. It can survive a 1 stud gap, a 2 stud gap, and even a 3 stud gap, but after 10 studs, it does not make it. So in this video, I'm gonna modify the train to make it pass larger and larger gaps, like this extra set of guide wheels on the front. Nice, it works great to keep the train in line even when there's a big gap of track. But next, I'm gonna widen the gap to 16 studs, which is a whole train track. Well, just a single guide on the front doesn't work, so next I'm going to build 2 of them that stick out further and on each side of the train. The first attempt didn't work, so I tried using more speed and it kind of made it, but the track wasn't on. But that should be an easy fix by just adding another train motor to the front of the train, which will give us power no matter which side of the train is touching the rails. Nice, that worked really well. So for the next gap, I'm upping it to 2 entire train tracks missing that the train has to get across. And the gap's too big for the guide rails to work anymore, so next, I'm building a tank. Just give it a second, you'll see. These 2 linear actuators can raise and lower the Technic assembly, which I can put a tread on, which is just one side of the tank, so I can flip it around and duplicate it on the other side. Unfortunately, I can't use one single axle to guide both sides because it turns the linear actuators on each side different directions, so I switched to using another bracket that will turn each side a different direction, which in turn actually makes them go the same way. But now that it's all working, I can lower them onto the ground, which lifts the train up off the tracks, and then use the treads to drive the train backwards and forwards, which should be able to cover the gap in the tracks. So let's see if it works. It took the treads some time to get actual traction on the studs, but once it did, it lined up perfectly and slid right onto the tracks. And then I can simply raise the treads once again, and then it can go along its way on the actual train tracks. But next we're raising the stakes and going up to 3 missing tracks, so let's see if it can handle that too. Unfortunately, one side of the tracks was actually faster, so over a longer distance, it gets misaligned and then can't actually line up with the tracks. So next I want to make a train that lays its own tracks. But official LEGO tracks are really hard to align and take a lot of pressure to put together, and I know no machine I build is going to do that successfully. So I built my own tracks and made sure there was a magnet in each one. Then I'll take my own train car and add this turntable to make the start of a working robot arm. I'll use one motor to make the rotation. I'll use a second motor connected to a worm gear to control the first section of the actual arm. And then one final motor can control the second section of arm using another worm gear, which will be able to pick up the tracks, using this larger magnet which perfectly snaps onto the tracks and will be able to move them around and place them in front of the train to hopefully cross the gap. But with that all said and done, there's only one true way to find out if it actually can work. It made quick work of the first track section, placing it down and then scooting onto its own handiwork to place the next one. Each track section has a hole on one side and a bar on the other, which help it line up when placing it. Okay, 2 down and 1 to go. Hopefully the alignment works well enough that it can actually cross to the other side. Nice, and with it placed down, all we have to do now is drive across and hope that each track is lined up well enough that the wheels don't get off track. This honestly might be one of the coolest things I've ever built, but is it cool enough to cross a 9-track gap? Well, it placed all 3 track segments that were on the train just like it should, But obviously we need 9 tracks, not 3, so clearly it's not gonna make it to the other side. But I know just the modification that can, hopefully. Well, we'll see if I can make it work. I tripled the size of the train car, which now has 3 sections of 3 tracks, 9, which is the exact amount we need. But the robot arm needs a way to get to all of them, so I built this little buggy that can roll along these gear racks and get to every section. I know I said the last one was the coolest thing I built, but I think this has to top it. Or it will be if it can actually lay all 9 sections of track without getting off track, or breaking, or being misaligned, or any of those things. First section of track, no problem, and the little cart can roll back to pick up the next piece. I was kinda worried that as I kept going, each track piece would be slightly out of line, but I realized that I could use the actual crane arm to push them in line with the rotation, and hopefully that's enough to keep it on track all 9 track sections long, so that it can roll off on the other end. It finished the first 3 successfully, so now it can roll even further back to reach the next hopper of tracks. And now that those 3 are done, it can roll even further back and use the rotation to pick up the last 3 sections and place them down. And finally, for one final time, I slotted the track into place, disconnected the robot arm, and with that, it actually rolled all the way across, no misalignment. But I decided to make one final gap, and it's actually back down to 3 missing track pieces. But what happens if the track isn't even aligned with itself? Well, obviously this train doesn't make it and just drives into the grass. But thankfully I decided to build one secret final mechanism to hopefully save the day. Well, I think it's safe to say that offset gaps and tracks definitely got the best of me. At least for now. But at least I got this cool funky looking car thing out of it. 15,000 likes and I'll try and defeat the offset track gap. Thanks for watching, bye.